Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Mad Meta Magic, where we try to make the magic meta mad. Now, I've been trying to find a Mox Amber Mono White list for a while, and this one looks suspiciously similar to the last time I played against it, but I don't remember if the one that I played against had Leon and Arbiter in it or not. This version does not, and this is more of a mono white aggro list than it is a taxes list. So, what is the competitive advantage of this deck? The competitive advantage of this deck is using the last Mox available in Modern as a free mana source to power out threats in mono white. This deck actually kind of looks like it wants to dump its hand on turn 1. So, Mox Amber adds one color, or one mana of any color of a legendary creature or planeswalker you control's, like, color identity. So, we have a lot of one mana legends to facilitate this. Isamaru, Hound of Kanda, just a generic one mana bear, which is actually a dog. We have Kytheon, who is a elite vanguard that flips into a planeswalker, can make himself indestructible. We have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, however you pronounce that. Then in the 3-mana slot, we have Thalia, Heretic Cathar, Brimaz, and Mangara of Corondor. Most of our legendaries that are cheap, we're running 3 copies of instead of 4, because we don't really want to ever have them in duplicates, but we do want to draw them. And to support our powered-up game plan, we have some very aggressive creatures. We have Toolcraft Exemplar, which is a 1-mana 1/1, that at the beginning of combat on your turn, as long as you control an artifact, which is a pretty low opportunity cost, it gets +2/+1 until end of turn. So this is a 1-mana 3/2. It's effectively a Delver of Secrets without flying. If you somehow achieve Metalcraft, it has First Strike as well, but it is not likely that we ever have Metalcraft online. Because Mox Amber is legendary, and that would imply we have 2 Mishra's Baubles on board, and then why aren't we cracking them to draw more cards? Because we're a mono white deck and we're going to need cards. We have Mana Tithe for the gotchas. This is the only part of our mana denial plan other than Thalia. So there's no Ghost Quarter, Leon and Arbiter shenanigans in this deck, as I've mentioned before. I guess technically we also have Archon of Emeria, which is a rule of law on a body and forces non-basic lands your opponent plays to enter tapped. We have Selfless Spirit to help protect the board. And in the 3-mana slot, like I said, we have Thalia, Heretic Cathar, also makes non-basic lands enter tapped. We have Brimaz, who's kind of like a mini hero of Bladehold. He's a 3-mana 3/4, makes cats when he attacks. The cats are also attacking. Also makes cats when he blocks, and the cats also block. And Mangara of Corondor, which... one of the best cards in the game to flicker, because you can tap him and then flicker him in response to his ability, and you'll still exile the other permanent. However, we have no way to flicker him in this deck, so he's kind of just a Vindicate, which is fine. We have Force of Virtue, which is a 0-mana anthem, provided we pitch another white card in our hand. This makes our redundant legendaries good, as it gives us an outlet to get rid of the card while still gaining advantage out of it. And we're trying to play a whole bunch of stuff on like turn 0 to 1. Hopefully that'll be enough to win the game. Ideally we cast like Spectral Procession on turn 2 after having a Force of Virtue off of like an Isamaru or a Kytheon Mox Amber hand, which is a very, very strong line. Out of the sideboard, we have some other generic white sideboard cards. We have Core Firewalker versus Mono Red. We have Celestial Purge versus the Rakdos color permanents that are going to give us a lot of trouble. Revoke Existence is a way to get rid of enchantments or artifacts. Declaration in Stone, good versus Dredge, good versus tokens. We have Leon and Relic Warder in case we come across deck running artifacts that we want to exile. Mirren Crusader, it's good versus like Jund, it's good versus Rock, it's good versus Death Shadow. It's got protection from 2 relevant colors, and it has double strike. Unfortunately, there's no equipment to suit this guy up with, but he's still pretty good. We have Deafening Silence for Storm Hate, and we have Worship, which is pretty great. Worship, as long as you control a creature, you basically can't die to damage. You can definitely get some people with this one, so... Alright, I think I've rambled enough. Let's go ahead and take this into a competitive constructed league, and I will see you guys in round 1. Alrighty, round 1. If this hand had a single planes in it, it would be great. Unfortunately, it does not, so we have to mulligan. I'm not a huge fan of this. The problem is I can play like a 4/4 on turn 1, and then just like pitch the rest of my hand. The more we mulligan, the worse this deck is going to get too, because we're going to have trouble recouping card advantage. I'm going to try keeping this, and I'm going to put back Mangara. We are on the draw as well, something to be noted. I guess if I get Thought Seized, I just pitch my whole hand. Like, my opponent mulliganed to 5, so there's that. We untap. We draw Mana Tithe. Play a Plains, and I don't think we hold up Mana Tithe. I think we play out Isamaru. Pass the turn. You know, it's just that whole, in response to Thoughtseize, I cast my whole hand and dump the rest into exile. Like, it's very silly. If I'd held up Mana Tithe, we could have gotten the amulet from them. I think I'm going to pitch Force to Force. That seems the most reasonable. Like, it's not great, because ideally, like, we go wide in addition to making huge anthems, but, like, I want to cast another threat to have it, and Mana Tithe feels like it might hit a relevant spell this game, especially if my opponent's missing a land drop. Alright, go to combat, hit our opponent for 3. Now the question is, do we play out Toolcraft Exemplar and hold up Mana Tithe, or do we play Thalia? And I think we play out Toolcraft and hold up Mana Tithe, because it's going to be hard to get value out of Mana Tithe post-Thalia, especially with so few lands. So this way, if my opponent casts a 3-drop, we can tithe it. They untap Simic Growth Chamber, they float the mana, they explore, so they draw a card, they play Growth Chamber, untap it, float mana, float 3 mana, they bounce the castle and play Dryad. I will Mana Tithe Dryad. Alright. We untap, we draw Plains, play a Plains, go to combat, hit our opponent for 5, take them to 12, play Thalia, pass the turn. We are swinging for 8 / potentially 10 if we draw an artifact next turn. A number of good top decks. Another creature for either some, like a backup plan or something like that. We can't cast Spectral Procession if we top deck it. We untap, we draw Thalia, go to combat, attack our opponent for 8, take them to 4. Okay, play Thalia, Heretic Cathar. This does mean all of my opponent's lands will enter untapped because they have Amulet, but they can't play a creature to block. Nice. Alright. So versus Amulet Titan. That felt pretty good. I really, really had my doubts about that hand, but that felt pretty good. So versus Amulet Titan, they're probably centered on the Valakut plan now. I mean, I could play Deafening Silence. Not sure if that's good. Worship, they can just take us to 1 life and then kill all our creatures with Valakut triggers. Could play Relic Warder. Might be worth it to play Relic Warder. Just like over a Selfless Spirit, I guess. Not 100% on this one. But I don't think I want Pithing Needle. Purge doesn't hit anything. Deck and Stone, any creature we can hit from them is going to... It's going to be a problem because most of the creatures, if they resolve, are going to be an issue for us long before Deck and Stone would actually get any real value. Revoke Existence, it can hit Dryad, I suppose, and so can Leon and Relic Warder. So maybe I bring in Revoke Existence over Selfless Spirit. Try it like this. I have no idea if this is correct or not. Alright, this hand does nothing. I mean, it plays a 1/1. It plays 2 1/1s and has a Mana Tithe, but I think we can do better. This hand is potentially significantly better. A little bit ambitious with these Mana Tithes, but we have a Mishra's Bauble as a redraw, and we are on the draw. I'm going to try keeping this. If we get a Mox Amber, we're in a much better place. Another Bauble. Play a Plains. Play Bauble. Play Bauble. Now I can play Isamaru, or I can hold up Mana Tithe. I think holding up Mana Tithe is going to be better this time. I have a sneaking suspicion. So, on my opponent's upkeep, let's take a look at what they're drawing. Turn Timber Symbiosis. Okay. Opponent plays Growth Chamber, probably picking up Radiant Fountain. Okay. So we're going to look at their other card. They're drawing an Explore. Okay. Pass the turn, we untap. We draw a Mox Amber, and a Mutavault. And Mangara. So, play Mutavault. Play Mox Amber. Play Isamaru. And I think we play Thalia here. Pass the turn. That was a pretty good sequence of draws. If we draw another land, we can hold up double Mana Tithe as double white Censor. But it plays Radiant Fountain. They can cast a 3-mana Explore here, and I expect them to. Okay, they play a Dryad, which is effectively Explore Plus, especially with another bounce land. That's an issue. We can play Mangara, but that does prevent us from playing Mana Tithe. I think we gotta do it. We basically have the ability to exile 2 lands with Mangara or deal with Dryad. I wish I could play Force of Virtue on my opponent's turn, but Thalia is preventing us from doing that. So unless my opponent has removal for Thalia, that's gonna have to wait. Okay, opponent plays Radiant Fountain. 3-mana Explore. Opponent plays Turn Timber as a land, casting another Explore. Opponent passes. We untap. We draw a Bauble. So I can either take my opponent off of 2 mana, or I can exile Dryad. I think I have to exile Dryad, because if I don't, Valakut kills us if they have it. Whereas, like, potentially we can Mana Tithe if they don't hit another land, which is possible. So we're going to take out Dryad. I'm going to play Bauble off of Mutavault. Go to combat. Attack them for 4. Take them to 19. Stop on their upkeep. Take a look at what they're drawing. Forest. Okay, that's bad if they have land to Titan. They play Amulet for 2. They play an Explore to draw a card. So we know they're holding a Forest. They play the Forest. They play a Wooded Foothills. They play another Amulet. Can't do anything about that. Okay, on my opponent's end step, let's Force of Virtue. We untap. We draw. Path. And a Plains. Play Plains. This is nice because we get to hold up Path or Mana Tithe. Animate Mutavault. Swing for 9. Man, that life gain was... It actually really mattered. Although, if they crack Wooded Foothills, they're down to a life total that, like, we're representing lethal with. So, pass the turn. Opponent untaps, they draw. Here comes a Summoner's Pact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So, in response, when the lands enter the battlefield, that's when we path. Because if we... Like, if they go for the land that gives Titan haste, then we path. If we don't, they can get, like, Simic Growth Chamber and Talaria West, which will allow them to transmute for another Summoner's Pact. Path to Exile. Okay, opponent gets a Forest. They can untap their lands a whole bunch of times, but they cannot crack any of their fetch lands without dying. They have to pay 4 at the start of their next turn or lose. They pick up their Turn Timber Symbiosis land. That makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're 1 mana short, so if they draw an untapped land, Mana Tithe is actually... They have to draw an untapped land to actually cast Turn Timber Symbiosis. And Mana Tithe would actually win us this match under those circumstances. So, animate Mutavault, go to combat, swing 9, take them to 1, pass the turn. They might get got by the Mana Tithe Inquisition. That'd be pretty fantastic. So opponent untaps, they gotta pay for Summoner's Pact. Oh, they also have to have triple green for that to work. They have to draw an untapped green land here. Oh, actually, with double Amulet, it's not likely that Mana Tithe would actually work, now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, they play Turn Timber tapped. Untap it. Add green. Untap it. Summoner's Pact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, they can play a Titan? They can play Titan through Mana Tithe? The jerk. I'm still gonna do it. If they had drawn another... Actually, they couldn't cast Turn Timber Symbiosis because it would have cost 8. So they'll probably, like, Vesuva Radiant Fountain. Or they'll get a Boros Garrison. Oh, are we dead? Because if they can get another Boros Garrison and Vesuva Slayer Stronghold, they can... They might not be able to give it double strike with Sunhome, though. Usually double Amulet means death, but the fact that they had to top Or they had to tap Slayer's Stronghold might make the difference. So they can Ghost Quarter or Mutavault, and they can chump one of our guys. We draw Mana Tithe. So go to combat, animate Mutavault, attack with everybody. Opponent blocks Thalia, chumps Isamaru, they have to Ghost Quarter Mutavault. Yep, gives us a Plains. So we cast Bauble. We basically have the top deck path to exile. See what our opponent draws. Talaria West. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent has to pay 4 for Summoner's Pact. So we get to draw Thalia. Unfortunately, that does not do it. Opponent not activating Slayer's Stronghold. Time to see if we die. I imagine there's a really good chance we do. They get Vesuva on Colony Garden and Growth Chamber. So they can just make a whole bunch of creature tokens. Man, if we had drawn Thalia on our turn, we could have stopped them from making blockers. They pick up Vesuva. They make a plant. They hit us for 6. We go to 14. They're transmuting Talaria West. Is this for another Summoner's Pact? Okay. They cast Summoner's Pact for Dryad of the Elysian Grove. They play Dryad. Then they pass. We untap. We draw Brimaz. Play Thalia. Pass the turn. But like now they just get Valakut. Yeah, alright. Next game. We were so close. I probably misplayed, but I don't know how. Yeah, we'll go ahead and run it back. Alright, good, fast opener, let's go. I think this counts. It's not amazingly fast, but it does do stuff. We'll probably be pitching Mangara to Force of Virtue. Not 100% on that, because we can play Mishra's Bauble and crack it to draw now. This opponent is drawing Groll Turf. The reason that we're doing it this way is because we want a card to pitch to Force of Virtue, and having an additional card might give us an option between Mangara and something else. Opponent starts Forest into Arboreal Grazer. Okay, probably putting Turf into play and picking up Forest. They put into play Slayer's Stronghold. Alright, so Force, exiling Mangara, untap, we draw Bauble, play Mutavault, play Bauble, go to combat, attack for 3, opponent does not block, pass the turn, stop on my opponent's upkeep, take a look at what they're drawing, it's another Forest, they play Amulet into another Forest, Adventurous Impulse, they get Colony Garden, we draw Mana Tithe, followed by a Plains. Now I'm going to end up animating the wrong land here. I know this is a fact. So animate the old Mutavault, go to combat, attack our opponent for 6, leave up Mana Tithe Path, opponent chumps Mutavault, takes 3, pass to our opponent, they untap, they play Colony Garden, untap Colony Garden, get a token, we untap, draw another path, play a Plains, animate Mutavault, go to combat. We're representing maximum interaction here, rather than maximum aggression, which would cause us to tap out. We technically are a weird deck playing counter spells and stuff. Not really sure how to feel about that, but hit our opponent for 3, take out their token, pass the turn. If they just try to go Groll Turf Titan, we have Mana Tithe for it, followed up by multiple paths if anything were to go wrong. 4 mana. Opponent plays Groll Turf, untapping Groll Turf. They bounce Colony Garden. Prime time. Mana Tithe. Alright, we untap, draw Bauble, play Bauble, crack it immediately. Opponent is drawing a Radiant Fountain. Does that change the clock? If we hit them for 6 this turn, they go to 5. We can hit them for 9 next turn. Okay. We're not going for maximum damage here because we're leaving up 2 Path to Exiles. Hit our opponent for 6. Opponent untaps. We draw Moxamber. So we know our opponent is holding a Colony Garden, which they can use to make a token. They play a Primeval Titan. Okay, let's see what lands they get. We know they can't tutor up Radiant Fountain unless they're playing more than 1. Alright, Simic Growth Chamber and Talaria West. Path Titan. Okay, they get a Forest. Forest untaps. Growth Chamber untaps. They're going to bounce Talaria West. Probably transmute this turn. Okay, let's see what they grab. Can't be a Pact of Negation. So it's either a land or a Summoner's Pact. Okay. They cast it immediately. This must be a bid to get Arboreal Grazer. Okay. This is so they can put, I think, probably Radiant Fountain into play. Okay. They play Grazer. They put Ghost Quarter into play. That's annoying. Kind of achieves the same goal. Yeah, we don't do anything about this. We can try and Path Grazer and just go for the lethal attack, but between Ghost Quarter and a block, they're going to have it. We need to draw either another path or... Actually, I think that's about it. So Path Grazer. Fail to find. We untap. We draw Sunbaked Canyon. Play Mox Amber. Animate Mutavault. Play Sunbaked Canyon. Animate Mutavault. Go to combat. Attack them for 9. Opponent's going to have to Ghost Quarter 1. We get a Plains. They block another one, take 3, go to 2. And then they can play Radiant Fountain next turn. I am just going to cycle this immediately. Okay, we draw another Plains. Pass the turn. So opponent untaps. They got to pay for Pact. I mean, if they just have Radiant Fountain into Primeval Titan, we're in trouble. I probably shouldn't have pathed the Grazer. I probably should have saved it for something else. Opponent plays Boros Garrison. Taps it. They're up to 6 mana. Bounce Colony Garden. There's Primeval Titan. Well, they can't Vesuva for Colony Garden, and they're holding Radiant Fountain. Do they have another land that makes a token? Do they play two Colony Gardens? I mean, my opponent knows their deck better than I do, but that might be a mistake. I suppose if they have, like... I'm not sure. I think they needed to leave Colony Garden on field so they could get Vesuva and target it. They get Vesuva and Simic Growth Chamber. This does make a copy of Boros Garrison, so they can give Titan Double Strike, and or they can give Titan Haste. Okay, Haste and Vigilance. They attack us for 8. If they have Sunhome and another Boros Garrison somehow, they can Double Strike us for 16, but I don't think that's enough to kill us. Not unless they also have another creature they can play as a blocker. Okay, so they're going for Growth Chamber, Talaria West Transmute. So they can transmute for another Arboreal Grazer and play a blocker. And then they can replay Colony Garden. So us drawing one removal spell doesn't do it. That's really frustrating, because we've had our opponent so close to dead. We don't have anything with haste. We need to answer this Primeval Titan. Like, we need to draw another path for Primeval Titan. Maybe I should be playing the Declaration in Stone here. Another Isamaru does not do it. Well, animate. Go to combat. Attack for 6. Alright, Pota makes the correct blocks. And then we are just dead to them double striking the Titan, which we know they can do. So, unfortunate. That was really close. We just couldn't close out the game. So, let me know if I misplayed. I probably did, but I'll see you guys in round 2. Alrighty, round 2, here we go. We have Isamaru and Force of Virtue, but if one of these 3 drops was a Mox Amber, this hand would be great. I think we got a mulligan. Oh, this hand is somehow worse. 1 to 5. So would we keep 3 lands and 2 Mishra's Baubles? Yeah, we got a mulligan again. Alright. Put back land, path. Alright. Opponent starts Suspend Rift Bolt. We draw Mutavault. Play Plains. Pass the turn. I'm not going to play out Isamaru directly into the Lightning Bolt. I think it's actually better if we wait. Mutavault plus Spectral Procession is also kind of iffy. We get Skewered. Opponent is on 1 mana. Okay, play a Plains. Play Isamaru. Pass the turn. We do have Archon of Emeria next turn. The problem is Archon of Emeria dies to every bolt known to man. The opponent did find a second land. They Lava Spike us. And pass. We untap. We draw Mox Amber. Play Mox Amber. Play Spectral Procession. Opponent Lightning Bolts us. We go to 8. make 3 1/1s, play a Mutavault. What this means is my opponent's last 2 spells in hand are going to be action spells. We don't have any way to gain life. It might have been better to play Archon there rather than the Spirit, because we could have potentially prevented them from casting multiple burn spells. But I suspect what's going to happen here is we're going to get bolted twice, and then our opponent's going to untap and bolt us again. Alright, go to combat. We're not animating Mutavault here, because we want to play Archon and then Path on our opponent's turn, I think. Hit our opponent for 5. I mean, it's possible my opponent has, like, 3 Skewer the Critics in hand and can't cast them. Okay, we hit our opponent to 13. Play Archon. Tapping Mox, just in case our opponent feels like lightning bolting Isamaru for some reason. Boros Charm, we go to 4. Archon of Emeria resolves. Well, we're a Boros Charm or 2 bolts from death. Opponent plays a Fiery Islet and Lightning Bolt. Alright. Why did I concede? I, for some reason, was like, oh yeah, we only have 3 life left. I don't think we were winning there anyway, but we'll definitely be way better off with Core Firewalkers in the deck, and probably Worship. So we're bringing in Worship, we're bringing in the Firewalkers, Celestial Purge. What are we taking out? What is really bad versus what our opponent is doing? I think probably Selfless Spirit is bad, so that's 2. And Spectral Procession, while it seems really strong, is also very slow. I think it's better off as these other cards. Alright, run it back. Ugh. I would like to play first. If we draw a second white source, this is great. If we don't, this is horrible. So I'm gonna mulligan. What is with these draws? Alright, we'll keep. Put back a Plains. The fact we're running all different kinds of Plains arts is also throwing me for a loop here. I should have swapped them all out to start, but I did not. I'm gonna leave up Mana Tithe because my opponent is going to use all of their mana turn 1. Like, guaranteed. If we can counter a Swift Spear, that's great. And if my opponent doesn't cast anything turn 1, we play a 1-drop on turn 2 and leave up Mana Tithe again. Goblin Guide. Mana Tithe, Goblin Guide. Alright, we untap. Kytheon Tron! Play Kytheon. Pass the turn. We could have mulliganed to 5. This deck seems to mulligan very poorly. That is something I'm noticing, which is very disappointing. Opponent plays Wooded Foothills, cracks Wooded Foothills, gets a mountain. Plays a Goblin Guide. Second Goblin Guide. Draw me 2 lands, Goblin Guides. Thalia on top of our deck. I am going to trade, because we have 3 Kythians. Alright, we untap. Draw Thalia. Play Sunbaked Canyon. Play Kythian. Play Thalia. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Plays a land. 2 mana Lightning Bolts Thalia. Lightning Bolts Kythian. Attacks us for 2. Plains. Nope, Archon of Emeria. Alright, play Archon of Emeria, because it does block Goblin Guide profitably. This forces our opponent to probably bolt the Archon, which would be great. Opponent untaps. Suspends Rift Bolt. Lightning Helix's Archon. Attacks us with Goblin Guide. Toolcraft Exemplar on top of our deck. What is with us having 9 lands in our opening hand, and that's a blatant exaggeration, and then on 5 Goblin Guide flips, only hitting non-lands? This is ridiculous. Pass the turn. I will trade Gideon here. I'm not above this. Or Kythian. Whatever. Rift Bolt coming off suspend. They kill Kythian. We're at the point that our opponent could have just bolted us to death. We're drawing a Mana Tithe at the worst possible time. We're gonna go ahead and take the damage. Untap. Draw Mana Tithe. Cycle Sunbaked Canyon. We get a path. Go to combat. Attack for 1. But it goes to 21. Really not winning this race, are we? Maybe I should have kept the 1-lander with Core Firewalker. That was probably a higher percentage chance to win. Alright, so my opponent plays Bloodstained Mire and suspends 2 Rift Bolts. Is that right? Yep. 2 Rift Bolts. Opponent goes to combat. Attacks us with Guide. Please reveal a land. Just let me draw a card, please. My god. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, on top of our deck. So we'll path Goblin Guide. What is that? 6 Goblin Guide flips? Not a single land. Sometimes the luck is just not on your side. So we are going to play this Thalia, which is going to eat 2 of our opponent's mana next turn, and possibly save us 3 damage. Go to combat. Hit them for 1. Opponent Rift Bolts our face. Rift Bolt's our face. I mean, the cherry on top would be if they just fetched and then Boros charmed us. We draw Mutavault, play Mutavault, go to combat. This Mana Tithe never going to achieve value. Hit our opponent for 3, take them to 17. Like, the circumstances under which we win this game are so astronomical at this point that it's just, like, not gonna happen. Because, like, my opponent would have to just draw every land in their deck while we beat them down. That's how this would happen. Opponent untaps. They draw a card. I mean, if it's a haste creature, we can at least animate Mutavault to block. They play Inspiring Vantage. So Mana Tithe even less useful. We can at least pitch it to force if we draw it. Core Firewalker. Thank God. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 3. Mana Tithe still doesn't do anything. Okay, but we're not dead to Boros Charm. We're dead to Boros Charm plus another burn spell, though. Oh my god, it's happening. We untap. We draw Archon of Emeria. Okay. Go to combat. Attack with all of our guys for 5. The only reason I'm doing this is because potentially we have lethal if Archon of Emeria and all of our guys survive. We can animate Mutavault and then swing 9 next turn. And Archon means a haste creature that my opponent draws would enter tapped. No, it's only lands enter tapped. No! Skullcrack! We take 2. Oh, we're dead to Lightning Bolt. No! Please no. One time not dead to Lightning Bolt. Come on. One time not dead to Lightning Bolt. We're dead to Lightning Bolt. Damn it. I mean, we shouldn't have made it that far, right? We should have lost way sooner. But, like, come on. I'm always dead to the 3 damage. If I'm at 3 life, and my opponent has untapped red mana, I lose every time, without exception. So, I'll see you guys in round 3. Alrighty. Round 3, here we go. I would like to play first. Alright. Alright. I can get behind this. Start planes. Play Mox Amber. Play Kythian. Play Bauble. Crack Bauble now, because we're looking for a Force of Virtue target. Or a Force of Virtue spell, potentially, I mean. But it plays Prismatic Vista, cracks Prismatic Vista, for a Forest, Utopia Sprawl. Mana Tithe, Utopia Sprawl. Now, do we force pitching Archon or force pitching Spirit? Pitch Archon. Wow, we played almost our entire hand. Play Bauble. Play Spirit. If we'd drawn a land there, that 3 mana Archon would have been amazing. Let's see what our opponent is drawing. Horizon Canopy. So they are, it appears, Heliod combo. Opponent plays Prismatic Vista, cracks it, gets a Plains into a Conclave Mentor. We untap, we draw Isamaru and a Plains. Play Plains, play Isamaru, go to combat, hit our opponent for 3 in the air. Opponent untaps, they go to 12. They play Windswept Teeth, they crack it, get a Plains into a Skyclave Apparition, hitting our Spirit, which we'll sack. Okay. We untap. We draw Toolcraft Exemplar. So play Toolcraft Exemplar. Pass the turn. Opponent has another 3 mana spell. Oh, another Skyclave. That is unfortunate. They crack Windswept Teeth. They get a Forest. They play Noble. They can attack with 1 creature if they like. We untap, draw Path, go to combat, Toolcraft Exemplar trigger, attack for 7. I shouldn't have held back. Okay, Path, Conclave Mentor. Kill Skyclave Apparition, hit them for 3, pass the turn. Opponent cycles Horizon Canopy, plays Arbor Elf, passes. We untap. We draw another Force of Virtue. I don't really think we have another choice. We just have to keep attacking here. I wish we could play this Force. It'd be so strong if we could. Opponent double chumps. Pass the turn. They draw a card. They play a Horizon Canopy. 6 mana. Ballista on 3? It is a Ballista on 3. Okay. They pass. We untap. Draw Mox Amber. Play Mox Amber. Keep the new one. Cast Force of Virtue. Okay, they're going to ping down Toolcraft Exemplar. Attack them for 4. Okay, opponent does nothing, they go to 2. I feel like my mic is in the wrong spot. I'm not 100% on that, though. Opponent sacks Canopy, plays Ranger Captain, gets another Walking Ballista and an Arbor Elf. So, we're clearly seeing a problem with this deck, and that is we have no reach to close out the game with. We've had so many opponents down to low single digits of life, and we just can't do it. Yeah, this attack just gets worse the longer we wait. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Heliod, gives Ballista lifelink, and gets infinite damage. Man. So close. Okay, this is definitely a Leonin Relic Warder time. Same with Revoke Existence. Probably Pithing Needle. And what comes out versus my opponent? I think Mangara. Archon is not the greatest versus them either. And cut a Mana Tithe. Oop, never mind. We're a 61 card deck. I forgot. I would like to play first. I will keep. Start Plains Bauble. And I will play out Mox Amber, even though it doesn't produce mana. Pass the turn. Leave up Mana Tithe. Opponent plays Arbor Elf. It gets tithed. Take a look at what they're drawing for next turn. It's a Windswept Teeth. Untap. We draw Isamaru. And another Mox Amber. Play Iganjo Castle. Play Thalia. Play Isamaru. Pass the turn. Man, if we could draw and cast Force, just even as a combat trick, it'd be great. If this is Walking Ballista on 1, that's a problem. Alright, that's a problem. They kill Thalia immediately. We untap. We draw Toolcraft Exemplar. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. Opponent goes down to 17. Pass the turn. They untap. Shock Temple Garden. Play Ranger Captain. Picking up another Walking Ballista. Play Mishra's Bauble, go to combat, Toolcraft Exemplar gets pumped, attack for 5. Opponent is going to trade with Toolcraft Exemplar, that's fine. They're drawing Eladamri's Call. Opponent untaps, we draw off of Mishra's Bauble, it's a Mutavault. They play Misty, they pass the turn, looks like they're leaving up Collected Company. We untap and draw, play Mutavault, go to combat, attack for 2. Opponent fetches up a forest. Collected Company. Alright, yep. Yeah, we're good. We're done here. Man, like, we're getting so close. We just can't close out the game, though. That's really frustrating. Alright, round 4, here we go. I would like to play first. This is a Mox Amber hand. I think I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to show my opponent that I have Mox Amber. I'm just going to start Isamaru. That could matter if my opponent has a Spell Pierce, but I don't want to incentivize them to kill Isamaru just yet. Hopefully we can draw a land and then just like slam Brimaz, or Brimaz, or Archon, depending on what our opponent's doing. Opponent starts Mountain. Swift Spear. Okay, we untap. Draw a second Isamaru. Play Mox Amber. So here, unfortunately, Mox Amber was basically a land. Play Selfless Spirit, go to combat, attack our opponent for 2, they go to 18, untap, they play an Arid Mesa, they fetch Arid Mesa for a Steam Vents, untapped, Manamorphose, alright, Stormwing Entity, that is a problem, so our opponent gonna attack us for 2, we go down to 18, untap, we draw Mana Tithe, and there's nothing we can play, alright? Well, unfortunately we can't attack into the Stormwing entity, so maybe we can get him with a Mana Tithe, but us not hitting another mana source is really bad. So opponent untaps and draws. Plays a Fiery Islet. They're going to Lava Dart Selfless Spirit. Sack Selfless Spirit. Manamorphose in response. We will counter Manamorphose. This lets us prevent 3 damage because of the Selfless Spirit trigger. We can at least block. Opponent goes to combat, hits us for 5 in the air. Sure. We untap, we draw Mana Tithe. Alright. So, bring in the core Firewalkers, bring in Worship, and we're going to cut Archon, Spirit, and I think Mangara. Nope, never mind. We don't need to cut Mangara. We're a 61 card deck, and I keep forgetting that. Alright, we'll play first. We'll keep. I'm going to start by holding up Mana Tithe rather than playing Isamaru. Unfortunately, he is our only like 1 mana play here. I'm going to crack this first because I would rather draw like Force of Negation, get it out of the way while I can still cast it on my opponent's turn. But second Mana Tithe, alright. Opponent starts Spire Bluff into Swift Spear. I think because we have 2 Mana Tithes, I can actually do this. We untap, we draw another Bauble, play Bauble, crack it immediately. Opponent is drawing a Lightning Bolt. They untap, we draw Mutavault. Okay, it's not another white land, so no Firewalker for us. If my opponent plays a Manamorphose... Okay, they play Swift Spear, that's fine. I was going to say, if they play a Manamorphose, then I'm going to counter the Stormwing entity, not the Manamorphose. They hit us for 1. We go down to 19. Opponent passes, we draw. Plains. Play the Plains, play Firewalker. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Plays a Mountain. Goes to combat and passes. We untap. Draw Mutavault. Play Mutavault. Play Firewalker number 2. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. Opponent goes to 18. They untap. They play Manamorphose. We gain 2 life. Opponent adds blue-red. Plays a land. This is probably a Stormwing entity. Evidently it is not. We untap. Draw Plains. Okay. Let's see here. Play Mutavault. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 4. They go to 14. Play Spectral Procession. Opponent untaps. They Lava Dart. Killing a Spirit. They flash back a Lava Dart, killing a Spirit. They abrade a Spirit. So they gained us 6 life, and they're going to hit us for 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage. So we take 4 overall. Photo goes down to 2 cards in hand. We untap. We draw Worship. Play Plains. Play Worship. That's probably GG. I don't think my opponent could beat that. Go to combat. Hit them for 4. I mean, even if they do have like a Brazen Borrower or a Disperse effect of some kind, it's not likely to matter that much. Play Isamaru, pass the turn. They Lightning Bolt, killing Isamaru. We gain life. Isamaru down. Opponent plays Stormwing entity. But like, we just animate all of our Mutavaults and swing, right? And then they die? Because, no, they don't. Never mind. Untap. Draw Plains. They should be dead in 2 turns. Animate Mutavault. Animate Mutavault. Go to combat. Swing out. Opponent has to block with Swift Spear here, so as long as they don't have Gut Shot or Mutagenic Growth, we should be fine. Opponent takes 4, goes to 2. We get to keep all of our guys. We still have Mana Tithe. Opponent untaps. They opt. They go to combat. They pass. We untap. Draw Plains. Play a Plains. Animate Mutavault. Animate Mutavault. Go to combat. Swing for 6. Opponent blocks Core Firewalker. Burst Lightnings to kill a Mutavault. Okay. They're still dead to the other Mutavault. Lightning Bolt. Mana Tithe for the victory! And look at that, we even survived with above 20 life. I think I want Deckenstone probably over the other Selfless Spirit. We'll try it like this. I mean, if we get Core Firewalker, and we play Worship, I think without attacking, there's no way for us to lose. I guess they could have the Kozilek's Return card. I know Blitz sometimes plays that. That would kill Core Firewalker, unless we Force of Virtue. Alrighty. This hand is much less than good, even with a Worship. I think I got a mulligan. This is better. It's still not great. I'm going to put back Mangara. We do at least get 2 redraws, and kind of get to know what's happening in our opponent's hand. Opponent starts Arid Mesa, shocks the Steam Vents. They hit us for 1. We untap, draw another Toolcraft Exemplar. Play Toolcraft Exemplar. Play Bauble. Play Bauble. Actually, I don't know if I turned off auto yields fast enough. I did not. I should have cracked one of them on my turn to see if I could draw Force of Virtue. So opponent just drew a Stormwing entity. They play a Bloodstained Mire. They crack it. They get a Mountain. Manamorphose. So here comes Stormwing entity. Okay. So it resolves. They scry. They hit us for 2. No blocks. Question is, do we crack this other Mishra's Bauble? I don't think we do, because we kind of need to attack with this Toolcraft Exemplar. At least this turn. We draw another one. We draw Isamaru. Play Mutavault. Play Thalia. Thalia's probably just going to eat a bolt, but... Alright, we attack for 3. When it goes to 13, they untap. They play Fiery Islet. Sprite Dragon. And a Swift Spear. Alright, so they go to combat. They attack in the air only. No blocks, take 4. We untap. Draw Mana Tithe. Oh, this is extremely awkward. It's either play your spells or it's not good. So pump Toolcraft Exemplar, attack for 5. Either one they want to kill, they have to double block. They don't. So they go to 10. They go to 7. Play another Toolcraft Exemplar. We're basically going to say to our opponent, you have to kill us or you have to kill enough of our board that you don't die. Opponent untaps. And they got a Lava Dart, which pretty sure means we're dead. Because that's 10 damage, and then they just flashback Lava Dart, killing our only blocker. Alright. Well, we won a game off of the strength of Core Firewalker. I'll see you guys in round 5. Alright, round 5, here we go. This is the fairest hand this deck has had, and I'm going to keep it. If we draw a Mox Amber, it's going to be great. Opponent suspends a Rift Bolt. Alright. We draw a land, which is not a Mox Amber. Pass the turn. Rift Bolt hits our face. Opponent suspends another one, and suspends a third one. Alright. Play Selfless Spirit. If we had a Mox Amber, we could play Archon, and then my opponent would have to bolt the Archon to bolt anything else. Actually, no, we would be able to stop them from casting a second bolt. This sucks, we didn't draw Mox Amber. And without Mox Amber, we're just really bad mono-white Stompy. We get bolted. We get bolted. Opponent plays a Sunbaked Canyon. They cycle Sunbaked Canyon. They skewer us. Okay, we untap. Draw Sunbaked Canyon. Play Plains. Play Archon of Emeria. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 4. Opponent untaps. They play an Arid Mesa tapped. They spike us. We untap. Draw Force of Virtue. Opponent can only play 1 spell next turn. If I play Force of Virtue now, it's 3, 6, 9 damage. Yeah, alright. Go to combat. Attack for 6. JK, make that 9. Opponent goes to 5. You have 1 spell, opponent. Never mind. We're dead. Opponent fetches with Arid Mesa. This is so disappointing. And here I thought we were actually going to get a game. A game that wasn't, you know, based on Core Firewalkers versus Mono Red, but I guess, cut Spectral Procession, and then we're going to cut the 2 Selfless Spirits. Try it like this. We'll play first. Alright, I will keep. This is a potential turn 2 Thalia into turn 3 Archon. I'd like to draw like an Isamaru or a Toolcraft Exemplar. Opponent fetches Shocks and Lava Spikes. We draw Plains. Play Thalia. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Sunbaked Canyon. Lightning Bolts Thalia. We untap and draw Core Firewalker. Play Thalia. Play Sunbaked Canyon. Play Core Firewalker. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Arid Mesa. Cracks Arid Mesa. It's a mountain. Path to Exile. Alright. Get a Plains. We untap. Draw Mana Tithe. Cycle Sunbaked Canyon. Play a Plains. Play Archon. Hit our opponent for 2. Opponent untaps. I can only cast 1 spell this turn, and it can't be Skewer the Critics. 3 mana Lightning Helix on Thalia. Draw Mishra's Bauble. Refrain from playing it, because that would mean we can't play anything else this turn. Go to combat. Hit our opponent with an Archon of Emeria. They go to 13. They untap. They play a Wooded Foothills. Tapped, of course. Bolt Archon. We untap. Draw Mutavault. Play Mutavault. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. They go to Lightning Helix it. Mana Tithe the Lightning Helix. This means we can't play Mishra's Bauble. Hit our opponent down to 10. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Full price Skewer the Critics. Crack Wooded Foothills for a mountain. Play a Swift Spear. Hit us for 1. We untap. Draw Path. Play Mishra's Bauble. Crack it. Look at what our opponent's drawing. It is a Searing Blaze. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. So as soon as we play a creature, it's going to get blazed. We draw Celestial Purge. Opponent cycles Sunbaked Canyon. They go to combat. They were going to attack, and then they changed their mind. Path Swift Spear. This probably means that they were going to block and then Searing Blaze to deal 1 damage to us and 1 damage to our Mutavault. We draw a Worship. Gonna wait to play that. Animate Mutavault. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Hit our opponent down to 4. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Plays an Inspiring Vantage tapped. Skewer the Critics, full price. We untap. Draw Bauble. Play Bauble. Crack it to draw. Opponent is drawing a Sunbaked Canyon. Animate Mutavault. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2, take him to 2. Pass the turn. Their hand is Searing Blaze, Sunbaked Canyon, 1 unknown. We draw Path, which is nice. They play Sunbaked Canyon. They cycle it, and they are now passing. We untap, draw Plains. Play Plains. Fire up Mutavault. Go to combat. Searing Blaze, doing 1 to us. Second Searing Blaze. Impressive. Alright. Pass to our second main. Play Worship. Opponent untaps. Opponent Boros charms us down to 6. We draw Sunbaked Canyon. Cycle it. Play Isamaru. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play an Inspiring Vantage and scoop it up. Alrighty. See you guys in round 3, or game 3 of round 5. Alright, this hand will not do it. Man, this deck mulligans so poorly. Yep. Okay, we get Swift Speared. We draw Force of Virtue. Okay. Play a Plains. Play Bauble. Crack it immediately. Opponent is drawing an Inspiring Vantage. We draw Plains. Opponent plays Inspiring Vantage. Suspends Rift Bolt. Plays Goblin Guide. Mana Tithe Goblin Guide. I got a Pathed Swift Spear, but like, Mana Tithe is not likely to get any value anytime soon, and Path is going to work next turn where it'll technically prevent more damage. Play Plains, pass the turn. Rift Bolt coming off Suspend. Hits us for 3. Another Goblin Guide. Opponent goes to combat. Draw me a land, Goblin Guide. Path Swift Spear. The Goblin Guide curse with this deck is real. Holy hell. We get hit for 2, which is actually more? Question mark? Oh, great. Yeah, versus the deck that's all nothing but spells that get hit by Eidolon. There's a Brimez. Alright. So maybe we stand a chance. If my opponent bricks here, we land a Force of Virtue, because Mana Tithe isn't going to do anything here. They attack us for 4. Kythian on top of our deck, so no land for Goblin Guide. On my opponent's end step, land Force of Virtue. We untap, draw Kythian, play a Plains, cast Brimez, take damage. Opponent untaps. They attack with Eidolon and with Guide. Mana Tithe on top of our deck is not what we want to draw. They trade with the soldier token. Nope, they decide they want to damage Brimaz. They bolt him too. So Brimaz is actually a pretty decent threat versus mono red if that's how they chose to evaluate that. Play Kythian, go to combat, attack our opponent for 2, pass the turn. Opponent plays an Inspiring Vantage, goes to combat and passes. We untap, draw planes, play a planes, go to combat, attack. Opponent blocks Kythian, make him indestructible. They take 2, pass the turn. We get bolted, down to 2. You know what that means. Top deck bolt time. Oh my gosh, this is a world first. We get another turn at less than 3 life when our opponent has untapped red mana. Are you kidding me? Play Archon of Emeria. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 5. They go to 9. They play Eidolon. We untap. Draw Isamaru. Go to combat. Attack with the whole team. They're going to block the cat soldier. Sure. We hit them for 6. Kythian flips. Let's make Archon indestructible and untap it. Play Isamaru. Alright, we got a Fate of Bolt for 1 draw. Oh, we knew that wasn't gonna happen. Oh, I can't tell you how upset this makes me. Yeah. Not even gonna Mana Tithe in Defiance. So we 0-5. We got a couple of games across the way. Let's go ahead and take a look at this deck list. So, alright. Let's talk about this for a second. This deck, there is the basis of something powerful here. We saw it in a few of our hands early on in this league, where, like, if you play, you know, 1 mana legendary and a Mox Amber, and then you play another 1-drop, and then you, like, Force of Vigor or Force of Virtue on your opponent's, you know, first turn, you untap, you start beating down for 6 a turn, you back it up with Path and Mana Tithe, or you play Thalia and slow your opponent down. Like, you're doing something powerful. It's really strong. The problem with this deck is, well, there's a few problems, actually. The first problem with this deck, when this deck is good, it's insane. Because, like, the theoretical, like, best hand for this deck does something like land Isamaru, Mox Amber, play Thalia. Like, turn 1, 4 power, Thalia. Your opponent gets to do nothing on turn 1 unless they're a creature deck, and odds are their creatures are going to be mana dorks, which are not going to do anything versus a first striking Thalia and like an Isamaru or a Kythian. So we never saw that hand, number 1. Number 2, but when the deck is bad, like, you don't do anything. When the deck is bad, you open up a hand of, like, you know, Force of Virtues and Archons. No lands. There's only 17 lands, and Mox Amber is this weird half-mana source, where it's only a mana source if you have mana and play a legendary creature, which is not all that unlikely because you have 6 1-mana legendaries, but it's also pretty unlikely because your opponent is going to have removal for Mox Amber or for your 1-mana legendaries. Mox Amber weirdly does not produce mana correctly because it interferes with Thalia. Like, if you play Thalia, then your Mox Amber costs 1 mana to give 1 mana, so you have to play it beforehand, and it forces you to play awkwardly. The next thing that's wrong with this deck, it mulligans so horribly. Because this deck is pure card disadvantage, you need as many cards in your hand as you can possibly get. And those, like, insane explosive openers where you're like, you play 2 or 3 1-drops on turn 1, and then you, like, Force of Virtue immediately after, you have nothing left in your hand. There was a game where we played all, like, 6 cards in our hand on turn 1. Something crazy like that. Because we only had 1 card in our hand when we untapped. It was nuts. And I think we still lost that game. But, like, the ability to do something is insane. But, like, if you mulligan, all of a sudden, your crazy, 6 to 9 damage a turn starting on turn 1 is cut down to, like, 4. Which, if you mulligan again, is cut down to basically 0. Toolcraft Exemplar is an excellent 1-drop in this deck. It's a card that I never would have thought of trying to build a deck like this. The problem is, it doesn't gain first strike unless you have Metalcraft, and we saw that that's problematic versus the red decks versus the Heliod company deck versus any other deck trying to get on the board early, that first strike really matters. Too many of our creatures have 1 toughness. Mangara, Thalia, Selfless Spirit, Toolcraft Exemplar half the time, Spectral Procession. And I know Force of Virtue is supposed to make up for that, but the problem is you can't draw Force of Virtue every game. That's the next problem with this. This deck is built of several independently powerful pieces. You have the Force of Virtue package to try and take advantage of your excess legendaries that you draw. Your legendaries are problematic because you can't play them in multiples. So you lose out on things that like regular Death and Taxes or Mono White Stompy has. So like if I'm playing Mono White Stompy or if I'm playing Death and Taxes, I can play a second Leonin Arbiter or a third. I can play multiple Giver of Runes and stuff like that. In this deck, you have the awkwardness of I can't even play multiples of the cards I want to be playing. I have to play them one at a time, and if I just have Kithiantron as an example, I've basically mulliganed X less cards. Like, it's there's the whole rant that I'm getting at right now is there is some very powerful lines in this deck, but there is also this inbuilt awkwardness that makes it not work. Even if they did away with the legendary rule, and you could play this list exactly as it is, and you could play multiples of each legendary that you drew, you are still playing underpowered 1-drops to turn on a Mox that does not give you a big enough payoff. It's not as powerful as Mox Opal because it doesn't give you the artifact synergies. You have to spend mana to make mana, whereas Mox Opal was you just had mana. So it's not really comparable. Now, if I were to try and change this deck to make it more playable, after this huge long rant about why this deck doesn't work. Also, white is a color that doesn't recoup card advantage naturally. So you have this weird, awkward shenanigans of like you're not drawing extra cards, you have to mulligan more aggressively because you're trying to get certain combinations of cards. Other combinations of cards naturally don't work, even less so than a regular deck. So, on top of all of that rant saying this deck is bad, me trying to improve this deck, what would I do? I would drop the Spectral Processions. I understand, with Force of Virtue, it's insane. It's terrible with Thalia. It's terrible unless you get multiple Mox Ambers or tons of lands, which we almost never did. I would drop those entirely. I would run, what is that card? Porcelain Legionnaire. Porcelain Legionnaire is a 2-mana, 3/1 first strike that helps turn on Toolcraft Exemplar's Metalcraft. It makes our board much more defensive. It is fragile. It's only got 1 toughness, but it's a card we can play in multiples. It's a card we can play cheaply. Mox Amber it can take advantage of that. I might play a Singleton Rise the Redeemed. I don't think I like 4 Mana Tithe, but Mana Tithe is best when you're playing things like Ghost Quarter Leonin Arbiter or you're playing Land Destruction. Like you want to have more mana disruption than just Mana Tithe. So Mana Tithe in and of itself is not good enough here. I would drop Mana Tithe in favor of either more of the cards that make this deck good, or Porcelain Legionnaire, like I just recommended. Maybe I would cut it for like Leonin Arbiter, and we would play Ghost Quarters out of in the mana base. The problem with that is then you reduce the number of white mana symbols you can produce from your lands alone, which we had awkward hands simply because we had a Mutavault when we needed any other land in the deck. I think I would play more Sunbaked Canyons or Silent Clearings or Horizon Canopies. I would play something to that effect. Now, there's an argument to be made here. Hang on, I actually have a couple of things. I haven't organized my thoughts well enough. Number one, we need more 2-drops in this deck. Whether that's Leonin Arbiter or not, I don't know. But we have too many 3-drops because arguably the best legendary threats in white are at 3, which we kind of tried to diversify at 3 so we wouldn't be drawing multiples of a 3-drop legendary when we can only play 1, that sort of a thing. But we need more 2-drops. The second thing that I want to say is, if we drop Mana Tithe, Spectral Procession, and play green-white using Horizon Canopies and like Temple Gardens or the green-white Painland Brushland, I think it is, we could play Rise the Redeemed, which would be more synergy with Mox Amber. and then we could play like Gaddock Teague, which would be huge versus several non-creature decks. It's also very strong against control because unless they have single target removal for him, they can't cast Wraths, they can't cast Planeswalkers to end the game. And I think there's another good green-white card to be playing. If there are artifact decks in the meta, I would actually play a Kataki War's Wage in this deck, even though I would have to sack my artifacts. Though I wouldn't play it in any version playing Porcelain Legionnaire, that's for sure. Honestly, the Elite Vanguard with the Boast to make a 1/1 as a mana sink whenever it attacks, I think that card actually might deserve a slot in this deck, because that's another way we can take advantage of the extra mana provided by Mox Amber. And I think that's my entire plan to try and make a similar deck, but better. My good friend Bone Daddy in the Discord, he's had another Mox Amber mono white list. I think I preferred his a little bit more than mine. It played like Karn Great Creator and Gideon of the Trials and was legendary basically all the way up. I don't know if I made that one into a video or not. I remember trying to record it a couple of different times, and I don't know if any of those actually made it to YouTube or not. I can't recall off the top of my head because I'm juggling too many things at the moment. But mono white with as much card disadvantage as mono white has, because they haven't given white card draw, and they haven't. So, all right, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to rant even longer. People who are Kano rant fans, you're welcome. All right, so one of the arguments for the longest time is that white doesn't get raw card draw because white is the color that gets the answers, that get the powerful cheap spells or the powerful cheap threats with like efficient dudes or all this other stuff, but then they don't print dudes on the same power level, and then there's only two ways you can make up for white not getting card draw in a game where card draw matters. You have to either give white redundant effects that are powerful, so you have to give white stuff like repeatable tap, like Gideon's Lawkeeper, or the mono white Shrine that was printed recently. You have to give white powerful recurring effects in order to make up for its lack of card draw. That is one way you could do it in a way that feels white. The problem with that is they don't like games to feel the same every single time, and if you do that, if you have powerful repeatable effects, what are people going to remember if they play against white? So they're not going to do that. Okay. So if white can't have card draw and white can't have powerful repeatable effects, white is just straight card disadvantage, which is why you always see it paired with blue, because the effects that are white, that are strong, you can make up for the fact that you have to actually expend a card by drawing extra cards, and then you end up with decks like Blue-White Control or Angry Birds or even the Blue-White Taxes deck. You could play Stoneforge Mystic in a deck like this, and that would help make up for some of the card disadvantage. It would greatly increase the price of the deck, though, and it wouldn't play into the Mox Amber strategy that much, because Moxes are good when they produce mana on turn 1. That's when they're good. Moxes are good when you can play a 2-drop on turn 1. A Mox playing a 1-drop on turn 1 is just not strong enough, which is what Mox Amber does. Because you have to spend your mana from your land for turn to play a legendary to turn on Mox Amber. If there was a legendary you could play for free that was white, that would be different. Because then I could play said legendary I'm describing, land Mox Amber, and have Thalia. Or legendary I'm describing, Ghost Quarter Leonid Arbiter, untap Ghost Quarter my opponent twice. Then I would have powerful things I can do. But the fact of the matter is, I have to cast one of these spells, and sometimes it's Mana Tithe, and that feels great, but I have to cast one of these spells after casting one of these spells, and that's only if I have a land, one of these spells, and Mox Amber. And frequently that's just not strong enough. And this deck is not consistent in drawing lands where I can play, Isamaru Kithion on turn 1, untap, land Mox Amber, play a 3-drop. Because there are a lot of powerful 3-drops that, like, Death and Taxes want to play. The 3-drop slot is just so heavy in that deck, and you either have to wait for Aether Vial to tick up to it, or play along it onto a curve, and then you have to dedicate a lot more slots in the 1 and 2. And now I'm starting to get incoherent, so I think I'm going to stop. Point being, the deck, mono white is pure card disadvantage, Mox Amber is pure card disadvantage, and the gain that you get from playing the card disadvantage to try and play powerful spells earlier, far and away is outweighed by the card disadvantage. So I think you can definitely jank some games out with this deck, or decks similar to this deck, but I do not think a deck like this is going to be good, probably for a very long time. unless they unless they print some crazy stuff soon. So, all right, that's enough of me ranting and rambling. I've got other stuff I have to do today. I have to actually start getting prepared to stream. So, I will see you guys later. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you were so inclined. And if you could think of a way that, like, Kano, you're dumb, just play this, or Kano, you had this in your hand the whole time, or Kano, you didn't mulligan to the right card, please leave me a comment in the description below and tell me what I did wrong, because I am still learning. There's a lot of strategies that I don't have memorized yet, and so I can always improve, and I appreciate having other people's insight on that. So leave me a comment, be constructive. I'll respond when I find the time. And if you want to join the Discord, the link's in the description below. You can speak with a bunch of other people who like brew and jank. And it's like my Twitch chat every day of the week, so it's a lot of fun. All right, I'll see you guys later. You're all wonderful human beings. Thanks for watching. Bye!